Hey guys, how's it going? Mithra14 here. I know it's been a while since I last had a video, but I was a little busy doing stuff with the Azur Lane first anniversary shenanigans that was happening throughout this month. But I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about the Meowfficers in Azur Lane. So Meowfficers are kind of the new gimmick that were added to the English server during the August 22nd patch. You equip them onto a fleet, and then they provide various bonuses. You usually access the information for these Meowfficers more from the Cat Lodge, which is now part of the HQ tab on the main HUD. So why should you do Meowfficers? Realistically, they're kind of an optional gimmick, and they aren't necessary since they're only usable in PvE, where most of the time fleet composition and equipment are more important. Although they do provide a little bit of good buffing to your fleet, so if you need that little extra boost in a late game situation, I think you might be able to find a little bit of use out of them. Also, they're cats, so if you do enjoy cats, they'd be a fun little thing if you have golden time to spare on the side when you're not grinding your ship girls or doing the other great activities and dailies that you should be doing in Azur Lane. So a few things to know about Meowfficers. You're gonna need these things called cat boxes. You get one free cat box every day, and then it costs 1,500 for every subsequent cat box. You can buy 14 of them for 1,500 gold every day, so you can only get 15 boxes every day. Cat boxes come in rare, elite, and super rare with distribution of 65, 30, and 5. So it isn't really recommended that you go hunting for the super rares. Once you have your cat boxes, you're going to need to train the cat box in order to unlock the Meowficer from within, which is kind of similar to construction, except there aren't really any quick finishers. You can have up to 4 cat boxes trained, so you can have 4 timers running at a given time. And there is a daily quest to complete the training of a cat box to get a free rare cat box, and a weekly quest that you do to complete 10 trainings for an elite cat box. So this is a little bit of footage straight from the tutorial on how to do the Meowfficers, demonstrating like how the process of getting your free one-it works, how training works. It's very similar to how construction works. Once you get to the actual training portion, you tap the complete, and then out pops a Meowficer. Every Meowficer kind of has their own stat line and their own like distinct thing. But they're very similar to ship girls in a lot of ways. They do have unique names to them, so there are unique identities to each cat. But the Meowfficers with the same name are identical to one another, similar to how getting 2 of the same ship girl is identical to one another. They gain experience when they are sortied. Currently, I believe the level cap of the Meowfficers is currently 30. They can be enhanced by consuming other Meowfficers, and similar to the backline of a fleet, there are 2 main positions for the Meowfficers on a fleet. There's the Command Meowficer, which is more like a flagship, and the Staff Meowficer, which is kind of the supporting cast. They have unique skills, and most of them are active based on the position, either Command or Staff, and they usually provide special buffs. Identical Meowfficers can't be assigned to the same fleet, just like with ship girls. And when training your cat box, each Meowficer has a distinct timer so that you get an idea of which Meowficer you may get out of a given cat box. However, there are a lot of really distinct differences, a lot of which are pretty obvious to anyone who's played Azur Lane for a fair amount of time. But the most impactful differences that come from strengthening the Meowfficers and the stats that the Meowfficers give. So in addition to sortie, Meowfficers also gain experience by consuming other Meowfficers. So on top of getting enhanced stats, they also get experience. Meowfficers only have 3 stats: logistics, directives, and tactics. These stats determine both the buff they give to a fleet and the strength and amplification of those buffs. And lastly, Meowfficers have 2 types of passives. The skills, which, as I mentioned previously, are kind of similar to the ship girls, where you level up the skills and they get more powerful. But they also have something known as abilities, and these are like the real big meaty buffs that the Meowfficers give to the fleet. Let's talk a little bit more about them. So Meowfficers all draw from a common pool of abilities, though you're given a few random skills at the start. Every 5 levels, a Meowfficer gains gives you a paw print or a token. If you use a paw print and some of the gold, you have the option to either upgrade the level of an ability, which upgrades the power of it, or you can acquire a completely new ability. On top of that, you have the option to respec your paw prints on a Meowfficer by paying some gold, which allows you to reset an ability's level and refund the paw prints. So, but it can only be done every 24 hours, and it doesn't affect the initial abilities. So when a Meowfficer is born at the start, those abilities are locked, and I believe you can have a set amount of skills afterwards. I believe the cap is 4. That you're allowed to add on to the Meowfficer. And going back to some of the footage, you can see that you can... by looking at the details, you get an idea of some of the talent bonuses and inherent bonuses that a given Meowfficer can give. But then if you look into the talent portion, which is where you get more of an idea on how to read the skills, you can see that this Meowfficer has the skill 9 lives, which when assigned specifically to the staff cap position gives you buffs. Additionally, you can upgrade the skill in order to add on additional improvements to the skill, capping up to level 3. Additionally, this cat has 2 talents, one of which gives battleships and battle cruisers and carriers a little bit of evasion, and the second skill gives carriers and light carriers additional aviation stat. A little bit of talking about how to enhance. You can see that you have the ability to enhance the level of the skill by consuming certain Meowfficers, and if you go into the talent tab on the left, you can see what skills you have, and you can see a cap of how many skills you can learn using your talent points, as it's called in English, to either upgrade your abilities or to acquire new abilities, which would go into the list. So why should I be concerned about Meowfficer abilities is probably what you're asking. So the buffs that you get actually affect the fleet numbers, so they can help out in hard mode maps where if you're short a few points on a certain stat, maybe putting in a Meowfficer of the correct one might be able to push you over that limit. Additionally, some of the single level abilities, which are kind of the super skills that certain Meowfficers can spec into, give really strong late game situation buffs, such as increasing your overall damage output, decreasing the amount of damage you take. You can get a mass increase of just offensive or defensive stats, or you can get like a specialized increase of certain stats, like getting more torpedo and crit for your destroyers and light cruisers. But since all of the abilities are since all abilities are drawn from a common pool, as long as you have a little bit of luck, you can actually make some of your favorite Meowfficers have the best ability layouts, which is always pretty nice. But with all this being said, I actually don't really think too highly of Meowfficers personally. It's not much more than an extra gimmick that's kind of meant to help you bandage out like the late game situations. It's a bit unfortunate, and it's actually a step back, in my opinion, from the implementation of research, which gave us more meaningful endgame material. Meowfficers are kind of just not much more than a time and gold stopgap for me. But hopefully they get a little more attention, similar to how submarines got a little bit of love most recently. Maybe giving certain Meowfficer skills the ability to be useful in PvP, or making them more like a rune system where you equip them and they add just raw stats without being a liability would be very useful. Instead, so that you can get those extra stats and have them be useful anywhere rather than being only in the end game. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this type of content. I know it's been a while, but hopefully I'll be on track to make more content. If you like it, please like, comment, and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching.